The end of the most famous manhunt in history for John Wilkes Booth ended at the Garrett Farm in Locust Hill. And Richard B Garrett is the son of the man who owned that farm. Jen of Walk with History, veteran, historian. I'm here with a very special grave honoring the end of a manhunt. He's buried here in Cedar Grove Cemetery. This cemetery was established in 1832. It is one of the oldest cemeteries in Virginia. They have people here from the Revolutionary War all the way to World War II, but there's also 240 Confederates that are buried here in this cemetery. This cemetery went into disrepair and it was neglected and vandalized. Then in 1995, a group came in and fixed it all up to what it looks like today. Richard Garrett was born in November of 1854 and passes away in July of 1922. He's 67 years old. Now he's the son of Richard and Fanny Garrett, and he's 11 years old when John Wilkes Booth stumbles upon their farm in April of 1865. He has two big brothers who were going to be instrumental in that story, John and William. He's named for his father, Richard Henry Garrett. So when you hear the story of John Wilkes Booth, Richard Henry Garrett is the owner of Locust Hill, the farm where John Wilkes Booth will stay for 2 days and ultimately is killed in his tobacco barn. As we talk about the end of the most famous manhunt in history, this book is so well researched and done by a historian. James Swanson writes Manhunt, the 12-day chase for Lincoln's killer. This 12-day chase ends at the Garrett Farm, at Richard Garrett's farm. It is no longer there. Now there's a marker on the side of the road. In this book, Richard B Garrett is 11 years old at the time, and he has very distinct memories of John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth will arrive at their farm at 3 p.m. on April 24th, 1865. He comes with another Confederate soldier, Jet, and Booth pretends to be a Confederate soldier. He gives the name J.W. Boyd, and he does that for a couple different reasons. John Wilkes Booth had a tattoo on his hand of J.W.B. So to disguise his name of John Wilkes Booth, he gives the name of John W. Boyd to mask that tattoo. He's claiming to be a Confederate soldier, claiming to be injured in a Confederate battle because he's injured with the broken leg, and asking the Garretts for some respite as he helps to heal from that wound. The Garretts, who had two sons who fought for the Confederacy, John and William, who are home from Appomattox, are they are sympathetic to his plight and take him in for the night. It says here that little Richard Garrett fetched the clothes of John Wilkes Booth and his crutches and helped him dress. Booth sat in the chair and put his leg in the boot, and little Richard Garrett helped him delicately slip his foot into the shoe. He eyed his pistol belt hanging on the headboard. It was a beautiful day, remembered 11-year-old Richard Bayham Garrett. The day was bright and warm. It was an unusually early spring that year, and the grass in the yard was like velvet, with the great orchard in front of the house with white apple blossoms. Booth relaxed by entertaining his little audience. All the forenoon recalled Richard Garrett. Our visitor lounged upon the grass under the apple trees, talked and played with the children. He had a pocket compass, which he took pains to explain to the children, and laughed at their puzzled faces when he made the needle move by moving his pocket knife above it. April 25th, 1865, as the day goes on, John Garrett noticed a stranger on foot walking from the gate towards the house. John Garrett is the older brother who fought in the Confederacy, who's hanging out with Booth, thinking they're both former soldiers. Booth rose from the bench and shouted for 11-year-old Richard Garrett to run upstairs and bring down his pistols right away. In a flash, the child was back on the porch carrying the heavy gun belt. Quickly, Booth swung the belt under his coat and wrapped it around his waist. This is when people start to wonder, who is this man really staying in the house? Why is he so scared of people walking in front of the house? And it's that next night that Richard Garrett Sr. will not let them stay in his home and will insist they sleep in the tobacco barn. And that will be where the Union soldiers will find him, and it will ultimately lead to his demise. Richard Garrett will become a pastor, and you will see that's why there is this inscription on his tombstone from his parishioners. The Garrett name is always confusing with what happened with John Wilkes Booth. Were they sympathizers to Booth? Did they try to stop Booth? It's kind of a twofold thing when you think about it. Richard Garrett Sr. will testify at the assassin trial. That night when the officers come there to catch Booth, they put a rope over his neck and pretend to lynch him to get him to confess where Booth is. Now, he did insist Booth sleep in the barn the second night. He did feel like something was wrong, and he wasn't on board with ever giving shelter to an assassin of the president, but he didn't realize that's who Booth was. So later in life, Richard Garrett will write an entire article in the 1880s about his memory and his parents, trying to clear their names. The Garretts never recover from this assistance they gave Booth. They're always seen as Southern sympathizers. No one knows for sure if they really were a part of the conspiracy to help them hide and get away. So Garrett will write a whole memory of his parents kind of being bamboozled or kind of being lied to, and they didn't realize who Booth really was. Booth lies about his name. When they start to realize something is wrong, the Garretts will eventually not be able to make a living. They'll eventually go into destitution. Their name today is synonymous with the John Wilkes Booth story and the Manhunt, and we still aren't sure if they were part of the conspiracy or just happened to be unfortunate participants. And you never know what you're going to find close to you or around you. To even find a Garrett relation part of the story was just amazing. And we're happy to tell that story today. This book is great. Being here and learning more about the Garrett situation and how they were involved with John Wilkes Booth was exciting. And on to our next Walk with History.